Okay, I shall start. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town Council Planning Working Party. And I start with welcoming you to note that this working party has no delegated authority and may only make recommendations to full council. Urgent actions may be taken under delegated power of authority to the chair and the clerk. Item 1, apologies for absence, please. Colin?
Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Brown, Councillor Crooks, Councillor Lucarini, Councillor Martin and Vicky Phillips, the Deputy Clerk.
Thank you very much. Is it? Oh no, it's not anymore. That's on all of them on the committee. Item 2, declarations of interest and request for dispensations. Anyone? Councillor Andre?
I need some clarification. Item 7 on list B is Elmhurst Close. It's not the same part as Elmhurst Close. It's where I live, but I do live in Elmhurst Close and obviously have a non-registrable interest.
Is that a question, Chair?
Well, do I need to remove myself from the meeting or not?
Well, I mean, do you know the people? Do you know the applicant?
No, absolutely not.
Is it going to have any impact whatsoever on your property?
The access in and exit egress from Elmhurst Close is quite a distinctive feature of the objections that various people in the locality have raised. In that respect, it affects me.
If you want, I mean, it affects any councillor that hears a concern raised by one of the members of their own ward. I mean, the question really is, in terms of your proximity to the application, it doesn't seem particularly close. If you want to declare a non-registered interest, you'll need to leave the meeting for that item, and that may be more comfortable for you. And any councillor can leave any meeting for any item. They don't need an excuse. But if you wanted to stay, you'd need to ask for dispensation to be able to take part in the discussion and or the vote.
Right, Chair, can I do that? Then I do wish to stay and participate.
So you want to declare an interest and ask for dispensation?
That's it.
Okay, so Chair, we just need to vote, a show of hands from councillors. Councillor Andre can vote in terms of whether he can have a partial or full dispensation. So if you go for a full dispensation first, which means he can stay and take part in the vote.
Okay, can I have a proposer for that, please? I saw Councillor Cox first and then Councillor Smith. All those in favour, please, show. Yep. All those against? No. Okay. Yep. Okay, that's carried.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Clerk.
Item 3, sorry, minutes of the previous meeting. To approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of August, 2023. Colin? Please. I presume that you read these minutes. I know that we're showing them again, but it's just for clarification. And then obviously I'll ask for a vote afterwards for any new members that I can sign it as a true record. Yep. Okay, Colin. That's 447. 448, please, Colin. (449). Any comments at all? 450. Any comments? No? And 460. No? Okay, Colin, thank you very much. May I sign this as a true record? Can I have a proposer and a seconder? I saw Councillor Smith and Councillor Andre second. All those in favour, please show. Yeah. Any against? No, that's carried. Right, thank you very much. Item 4, which is matters arising from those minutes. Colin, can I have it up again, please? To note actions taken or outstanding from the meeting on the 8th of August. I presume that there isn't, because I don't think there is, no. No.
There's just the there was an action for Councillor Lucarini.
Right. The thing is, he's given his apologies, isn't he?
He has. Councillors may have noticed that there are various banners on the outside of the building, basically explaining that it is a going to be a large restaurant with up to 130 places for weddings, etc.
Okay. Any comments on that at all? No? Okay, Colin, thank you very much. Is that you, Colin, or is it, so all the minutes come up then? Must be.
Yeah, it was me. Yeah.
Oh, right. Right, thank you. Item 5, this is for members of the public to speak on planning matters other than the applications before the working party. If you wish to speak, please make yourself known to the clerk before meeting commences. Is there anyone sort of wanting to speak before the meeting commences, Colin, at all?
I'm not aware. There's a number of members of the public here. We obviously know why Mr. Gatland's here. We've also got Harriet Wooler from Bidwells, which I assume is associated.
Right.
And I think Mrs. Johnson wants to speak about one of the applications.
Okay. Okay. Right. Item 6. This is Red Row Homes development at Great Willesey Park. Chris Catland, Head of Planning, just to give an update on ongoing work and upcoming applications for the next phases. Good evening, Chris, and good evening, Harriet. Who's going to speak first? Chris?
Good evening.
Good
Can you
evening.
hear me okay?
Yes, I certainly can, yeah.
Good evening. Thanks for allowing us to join you this evening. Harriet and I have prepared a short presentation just to put some material on the screen for everyone to accompany the update we're giving this evening and to set the context of the update. Harriet, are you able to put that up on screen for us?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you, Harriet. So that should sort of span the full screen for you.
Yeah.
Purpose of coming to see the Town Council again this evening, we've been in to see you at a series of points in the past as we've gone through various stages of the planning process for the Red Row parcels on the Great Willesey Park site, is to give you a little bit of an update as to where we are currently, and to talk about the next parcels that, whilst we're going to be some time before we commence development on the next parcels. We've got a lot of development getting through and still to get through on the first 3 parcels that we obtained a reserve matters approval for back in 2020, I believe it was. We need to start thinking about those next phases and ensure that we are working up plans for those next phases with the collaborative input from yourselves at the Town Council, other consultees, and obviously local residents. So we've started to evolve some concepts for some of the next parcels. We'll tell you what those parcels are and what we're planning to do and when. So this is just an image from some of the houses we've built at the northern end of the site, at the Haverhill Road end of the scheme recently. Some soft landscaping has been put in, which is obviously going to be maturing nicely over the years to come. Harry, if you could just crack on to the first slide for me. Very, very quick synopsis. The Great Willesey Park development benefits from an outline planning permission for 2,500 new homes and other infrastructure, which you can see listed on your screen there. And that was approved in 2018. The process to go through is, as we want to bring housing and other development consequent to this or pursuant to this permission forward, we're required to prepare and submit reserve matters for those elements. So we've currently secured reserve matters detailed approval for the first 499 of those 2,500 units, and we're now looking at the next couple of hundred units that are going to be brought into the development programme over the next several years. If you could move on, please, Harriet. The outline permission, subject to a series of parameter plans that set the principal framework for how we need to plan, design and lay out the housing infrastructure on the site. They're shown to you on the screen here, controlling where building heights are permitted to be slightly higher, what the density of development on different parcels is permitted to go up to, or expected, should I say, to achieve, in order to bring forward the housing delivery required through this allocated site, where the roads should be going to provide the connectivity, and what grade and standard those roads and size and width those roads need to be, and then a little bit about the public right-of-way connections that we need to take into account as we plan our development. The next slide just shows you within the red line the parcels of land shown in peach coloured, orangey coloured, that Redrow have acquired, parcels A1 to A8 and A16, that we are going to be delivering housing on. We've also acquired the land that's going to be needed to deliver the first of the 2 primary schools at the site and the first of the 2 allotment sites at Great Willesey Park, B1, E1. And then we are going to be delivering the strategic landscaping. We've delivered the 2 main vehicular connection points into the site by new roundabout junctions at Haverhill Road and Chalkston Way. So this just shows you the context of the site where we're working. All of the other land associated with the Great Willesey Park site, subject to the outline permission, has been retained by the original landowner. Just really to bring to life work we've been doing since we started on site to get this development underway. We secured a reserve matters permission all of the strategic, or pretty much all the strategic site-wide infrastructure for the first phase of Great Wolsey Park, the area that was subject to the red line on the previous scheme, in 2020. That was the first big, May 2020, that was the first big milestone for Redrow. That included the detail for the junctions, the strategic spine road, all of the drainage, strategic drainage and strategic site-wide landscape infrastructure. And we've been cracking on delivering that. So the two new roundabout access junctions are in. We've delivered just over 1,800 metres, 1,800 metres of infrastructure road site now, a significant proportion of the key main spine road infrastructure to the north and south has been put in. Connection between the two needs to be delivered still, but there's a significant amount of infrastructure that's gone in on this site. We've put in a lot of the drainage and strategic planting to the site as well. In terms of housing, the first planning permission that we got, the reserve matters for 499 units. We've built and completed 61 units at the Haverhill Road end of the site. They are built, completed and occupied. We've got another 8 units at the northern end of the site that are build complete and are due to be handed over in September and October. And at the southern end of the site, Chalkston Way end, we've completed just shy of 50 units, 13 of which are affordable, and 45 additional units are at varying stages of construction, some at groundwork, some have got roofs on and are working on internals, and that includes a significant number of further affordable homes. But currently we've got 110 homes occupied. Harry. Another aerial image. This is a drone image of the site taken a couple of weeks ago, just down the eastern end of Chalkston Way, looking to the west. You can see the new junction just over on the far left-hand side, and the homes that have been built are being built, and we're working from west across to east. We've relocated our southern compound to the northeastern corner, and that's a strategic location that will also enable us to build out the homes on the parcel to the north of the tree belt, parcel A7 in the coming years. Harriet, you can move on, please. Thank you. So what we're here to talk about today are the emerging thinking by Redrow for the development, layout and landscape design for the next 2 parcels. If Harriet, you wouldn't mind just toggling back a second, I think you can just see these 2 land parcels up on the screen from this drone shot. Parcel A3 to the north, and then there's a hedgerow feature, and then A5 to the south, and you've got the great plantation woodland to the side of those. So they're the parcels we're talking about here. In total, combining these 2 parcels together, we're envisaging delivering approximately another 200 homes. Current testing work is around the 198 figure. 30% of the 2,500 new homes at Great Wolsey Park in totality will be affordable dwellings, and that's secured by the Section 106 agreement with 80% affordable rent and 20% intermediate affordable housing. However, only 23% is required on the first 850 homes, and then it ratchets up to higher proportions as the development progresses. So these two parcels will both be designing and delivering affordable housing at the 23% affordable home level, and then we'll be getting closer to that 850 home point. Any development beyond that, which Redrow will be responsible for a small amount of, will be subject to the higher proportion affordable housing to be delivered. So we're all in line with the Section 106 agreement. It's 23% affordable of the approximately 200 homes on these two parcels will be affordable, built out to nationally described space standards. Planning consent requires us to build up to a density of 24 dwellings per hectare, which is actually quite low by sort of current sort of planning policy density requirements. If you look at a sub-region, even national level, they're typically a fair proportion higher than that. But this reflects the fact that these two parcels are located on what's considered to be more of the countryside edge of the phase 1 site. We'll be also delivering another drainage pond to the south of parcel A5, which Harriet can just sort of show where that's going to be. Essentially, there's one more pond, one more sustainable urban drainage feature required, which we can only design now that we exactly know what we're doing in this part of the site. Hasn't previously been approved. Connections are needed to the public rights of way, of which there's an important existing public right of way that runs to the east of the site. We've been engaging with West Suffolk's public right of way officer, the importance of creating those connections, and we're looking to cater for those, but also pedestrian and cycle connections, both formal and informal, through these parcels and around these parcels to connect into the parcels to the west and to the south. Not specifically required by the planning permission, but very much something that Redrow like to feature in their schemes, or in our schemes, should I say, are pocket parks, additional areas or areas of open space, recreation space, amenity space within the scheme that enables us to really make the quality of the place and the environment that we're trying to create. We think these are really important features within housing scheme designs. We're designing and making provision for 2 more park spaces of fairly substantial size within these two parcels. There'll also be managed connection points to allow residents and members of the public to access the Greatfield plantation woodland. Looking then at the parcel to the north in a little bit more detail. So previous screen showed the 2 parcels adjacent to each other. This is just zoning in on the parcel to the north. We've been engaging with officers at the planning authority, highways, landscape officers, ecology officers, all of the spectrum of specialty officers that you'd expect, to try to come up with an emerging principle framework for this parcel that provides the connections that are needed and a high quality scheme that we can then look to articulate with buildings and all of the additional layers of design. The idea here is that there'll be a village green envisioned space in the centre, fairly relaxed, well surveyed on all of its sides, accessible to all the residents within this sort of sphere of influence within this site, but also catering for connections east and west through the green. So if you're wanting to get from the green corridor on one side of this parcel, the green corridor and the public rights of way connection on the other, yes, of course, you can walk on the footpaths, long roads, the estate roads. There's also well-considered, thoughtful routes through, taking into account the village green, but also along the spine road, connections north and south. The whole principle for this phase is that it's very much in keeping with the character of planning we've already achieved and the housing we're building off the Haverhill Road end, but this landscaped village green, which will have some very careful ideas in terms of what we're going to put in this and how it's designed and laid out, is going to be the, I suppose, the keynote feature of this parcel, as well as a tree-lined street that is shown in blue here. It's got a large, very a substantial deep verge to one side, and what we're hoping to achieve through this verge is a strongly tree-lined boulevard and a swale sustainable urban drainage feature through some or all of this this verge of this green corridor, if we can call it that. There's strategic planting that needs to go in along the eastern boundary. What we've shown here is very, very sort of general in how we've shown this. There is going to be substantial new tree planting along that corridor. That's a requirement of the planning permission. It's to reinforce the landscaping along the boundary. It's all around ensuring that the scheme is well contained, visual views to the development from around the site where there's some sensitive views across the existing landscape that these are mitigated. So this is very much our evolving thought for how the framework for A3 we would like to bring it forward. Then looking at A5 to the south. Oh, sorry, no, little interjection. This is the concept that's been come up with for the village green. West Suffolk's planning department have got a really strong vision that they like us to deliver. They've explained, and we've gone out and done some research, looking at some of the characteristics of some of the very best village greens across sort of southern Suffolk. What are these features? What makes them notable and high quality? We're going to try and bring in some of those features and really look at crafting a design for this space that make it usable and stands up as a really attractive special feature within the scheme. So we'll leave this presentation with you. You can have a good look at the detail on that. Parcel A5 to the south, same density requirements under the outline planning permission, parameter plans. 23% of the housing will have to look exactly as to where different housing tenures are best located. We'll do that in discussion with registered providers that are looking to partner with us on these phases. There will be another sort of substantial piece of green open space in the centre of this parcel. This is a fairly tricky parcel actually to design. It's quite narrow, it's quite linear. We've got the great field plantation to one side. We've got to be respectful to the ecology and the habitats that are in that part of the site, and sensitive to things like lighting and noise and general activity levels. Sensitive to the eastern boundary, where we've got to strengthen the landscaping and the tree planting along that boundary as well. And just think about how best to bring this part of the site forward, where best to place the open space, roads. Key thing again is to try and make sure that there's no barriers to people connecting through from corridor to corridor inside. We've been thinking about where green connections can best be placed. And also how the housing will interact with the drainage basin suds feature to the southern end. So the idea is that there'll be an informal footway cycleway running between the housing and the Greatfield plantation. That won't be adopted infrastructure by West Suffolk or the county council, so it won't be lit to the standards required to be adopted because it's a sensitive ecological boundary. But there will also be a fully lit cycleway through the centre of the site, bringing you to the very centre of that parcel, which will connect to the adopted, to be adopted cycle infrastructure within the remainder of Great Wolseley Park. So we're trying to cater for a sensitively lit, more relaxed, informal cycle route through the green plantation corridor. If we then just look at the final slide, it's very high level, but we just really wanted to bring you up to speed. Well, this is looking at the open space in the centre of A5. It's fairly narrow, but it still affords us an opportunity to weave into it some lawn area where people could utilise it for sitting, relaxing, meeting, enjoying space, as well as some significant planting, some sort of more doorstep play features, we call them, natural rather than sort of a heavily choreographed sort of play space with formal play equipment. They will be reserved for the dedicated play areas elsewhere on Great Wolseley Park, of which there are a number, but relaxed opportunities for play at the doorstep in this space. Somewhere, a space that just provides a nice focal point again to the scheme, knits in well with the village green through the cycle footway connection to the road. And then finally, what are we looking to do next? We're looking today and through, we're going to be reaching out to residents on this site, surrounding residents. We're going to be sharing, we're going to be collating public feedback, collating your feedback, feeding them into these framework plans, and then we've got to prepare our detailed layouts, landscape designs for these two parcels. We want to get our applications into the planning system before the end of this year, and we're looking to secure planning for these reserve matters for these two parcels next year to give us the continuity for delivering housing this site. Still got a lot of housing to build under the current reserve matters, but that then gives us the continuity looking out several years ahead, because the work that has to go in beyond the planning process to build, obviously, detailed design work, tendering infrastructure, tendering all of the different work that goes into building these schemes. There's a long lead time. So we're looking to move the planning process forward in good time, but also getting as much input as we can to that process. So high level plans at this point, really just to give you a flavour of where we're going. And that was the presentation. I hope I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Just for clarification, before I see people got their hands up already. Just for clarification, on the third one from the end, cycle path, you said that they'd adopted the ones in the centre. Am I correct? And but not the one that's on the left-hand side with the green dots?
No, with the pink dots,
pink
Councillor.
dots, sorry.
Yes. So the idea will be that some of the cycleways that are not immediately adjacent, but the majority of the cycleways that are going to be immediately adjacent, they're going to be wider, and they are wider than standard footpaths. In the majority of instances, these are located next to or very close to the main development spine roads. However, there are other, the strategic cycle network that we're building into the Great Wolseley Park design does also extend into other parts of the site through some green corridors, knitting together an extensive network, linking different parcel areas together. Some of the cycleway links need, because they're going to be going through sensitive green corridors, etc., we won't be able to put them forward for adoption because it's mandatory, as I understand it, for adopted cycleways to have a certain threshold of lighting. We're going to be complying with that where we can where it's appropriate to put fully lit cycleways through the scheme. What we're looking at here is an additional network of slightly more relaxed, informal cycleway provision as well, in areas where it's important that there are opportunities to cycle, but these are cycle routes that won't be offered for formal adoptions. They'll be maintained by the estate management company.
Right. Okay. I saw Councillor Smith first, then Councillor Burns. I'll have them two first, and then I'll come. Can you? Keep these up. I must keep the things up because they might want clarification on certain things. And right. Okay, Councillor Smith.
Yes. Thanks for that, Chris. It's very interesting. My question was always going to be about affordable, but no, we've always known that you're going to be building like the say the high end stuff first, and then gradually ramp up the amount of affordable. As far as I'm aware, the building has slowed down considerably. Is there any chance that on this next phase that you'll be building the affordable houses before the executive houses, because we have a greater need in West Suffolk as a whole for the more affordable houses? Is it possible? Is there any reason other than economic why you couldn't do that? Although that is the big reason, I know.
Well, so a number of sort of aspects to the question. First thing to say is that that the affordable housing is distributed. If we look at the original planning permission for the first three parcels where we're actively building A1, A2, A8, the affordable housing is well distributed in clusters across those parcels. Now, the way Redrow is working, and it's typical for how we would build a scheme like this out, is that once we've got planning for that for a parcel, with that parcel, we would break that into a series of construction phases. So if we look at parcel A8, which is being built out, the Chalkston Way end of the site, my understanding is that's essentially going to be delivered in 3 build phases. You can sort of slice the parcel into 3, as it were, and there is a very sort of even distribution of affordable housing through those parcels, and we will be building. So the build route that's set will be taking into account those affordable homes, and they will be built alongside the private accommodation, the open market sale accommodation, as we move through those construction phases. So what's not going on is any form of recasting of our construction phasing on the scheme in order to either bring affordable housing forward or leave affordable housing. The affordable housing needs to be delivered in accordance with triggers that are set out in the Section 106 agreement. We want to bring the scheme forward, building the affordable housing sequentially as we build the scheme out. And it is typical for Redrow to be building affordable housing alongside private open market sale accommodation, then us taking that affordable housing into smaller phases, and we go out to the market, essentially the affordable housing registered providers to seek partners to acquire that affordable housing as we move sequentially through. So the current market is obviously what it is. We're obviously still building at the site, building at both ends of the site, and there is a lot of affordable housing that's at various stages of construction. So we're not anticipating any change to the I suppose the projection of the delivery of affordable housing on this site.
I guess our wish to have affordable houses spread around the site probably works against that, because you're not going to build random houses across the site, are you? You're going to be concentrating in little plots. Yeah, okay, thanks very much.
Councillor Barnes?
Right, Chris, Harriet, as usual, brilliant presentation. Ones I've seen many over the last nearly 20 years of working on this site. Let me, while we got that picture on screen, Alpha 8, I did have a chance to speak to your latest representative on site. I don't know if I can remember his name now, but anyway. And it was indicated that there, obviously the economy has created a slowdown, because you were going to build all 200, I think it's 280 units there, if I remember rightly, on Alpha 8. I think it's 280, something like that anyway. And that's not, as you just said, there's going to be now 3 phases. And, you know, that picture does show some of the affordable units in the sort of top middle of that drone picture, which I understand. And obviously on your, excuse me, on your website, it shows that, you know, what's been occupied and what's planned and everything else. So I'm a little bit concerned that that's not going to be completed, but I fully understand market conditions, because going back to Councillor Smith's question, of course, a lot of that site was going to be affordable as a percentage wise to, if you like, compensate for Alpha 1 and Alpha 2. Going on to Alpha 3 and 5, I love, well, without seeing the detail, but I love the concept. It goes back very much to all the hard work we did on the master plan all those years ago, making sure there were corridors, the great plantation was protected, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd be interested to see the details when it does come up. I like the idea of the pocket parks. I wish others would do that. So that's good. One thing I did notice in a very early part of your slide is the fact that you've purchased or obtained from Mrs. Pelly Delta 1 and Echo 1 for the school and allotments.
Right.
There you go. You mentioned it there. What are your plans on that? You're not going to build a school, are you?
No. There are provisions in the Section 106 agreement, John, for us to offer to transfer the land to the county council, for them to deliver a school on as you call it, looking at Delta 1. That's the local centre. It's B1, isn't it? So there's a trigger in the Section 106 agreement. Now we've reached out. The trigger was 100 occupations, and we've reached out to the county council some time ago to kickstart that conversation, to open up that dialogue, to discuss with them, because in the Section 106 agreement it sets out essentially we've got to present them with essentially a transfer that caters for all of their requirements, that they've then got a time period within which they can sign and accept that transfer, and that land is subsequently handed over for them to do their own plans on to deliver that site. Now, there was some work to be done because of changes in personnel at the County Council Education Department, and bringing them up to speed with this planning permission first and foremost, because I think the officers that inputted into the outline application, possibly even the allocation years before that, were not the officers that we've been asked to engage with now. We've been having some meetings with officers. We've been answering their questions. There's been some back and forth, them posing us questions, us answering them. And we are in the process with our legal team of working up a draft transfer to share with them to comply with that trigger of the planning permission. So the process, I think what we can say is the process for addressing the transfer requirements for school land on B1 is now in progress and is moving forward. I can't say how quickly it will be resolved, but it is well in hand, and we're happy to to document the correspondence should that be necessary.
Okay.
In terms of E1, there is also a trigger for us to deliver the allotments. Forget the trigger off the top of my head. I wonder if Harriet may be able to remind me. But we will need to prepare a reserve matters application for those allotments, which will look at how they're laid out, what goes where precisely the access is off the Spine Road that we've already got consent for, if there's parking and other facilities within that boundary. And we are yet to progress the plans, the detailed plans for the allotments. We have that as well as some other items on the agenda for starting to consider towards the end of this year, and I expect there will be an application in the system next year for the allotments.
Okay. I mean, it's probably too much detail at the moment, but in terms of the allotments, is quite important who actually manages them at the end of it. So that's something just to consider in the background. Couple more questions. I think it was 3 acres of land, if I remember rightly, or the land that was going to be donated to the school, which is marked in that green diagonal. Is that happening, or
Bear with me, John.
next to Delta 1 and Bravo 1?
So
To the west of.
I'm just referring to another document. I anticipated some questions there, but I've just got another document. Yeah, so the area that's shaded with there, the Samuel Ward area, as we've sort of named it. So that's an area which current landowner Mrs. Pelly and the Pelly Trust have earmarked to gift to the adjacent school. I am not aware whether or not that has happened.
No, okay. I just thought you might.
But that remains, as my understanding, to be the case. The Delta 1, which is the area for the local centre, that will be for the Mrs. Pelly and the Trust to bring plans for that forward.
Okay.
And we are going to be looking when they are ready. I know they've been looking at this. They want to bring it forward, obviously, and have got strong aspirations for that. I think it will be the case that Redrow will work collaboratively to support their application for D1 by also tabling and working up alongside that our housing proposals for A16, where we've currently got our northern compound, on the basis that there's a strong interaction and natural synergy between those two parcels. We've got to make sure the buildings are interacting and the spaces and the interactions along the boundary are well thought through. So those two will have to come through together. And A4, that is the extra care home land.
Yes.
Again, is retained by the landowner.
And sorry to interrupt, is B1 the school?
Yes.
B1's a school, yeah.
Right, that's very close, isn't it, to the other bit of land by the school? I'm just wondering if that would be a all through school. That's just my thought.
It's a primary school.
Yeah, but you got the secondary school next to it.
Well, it might be, but it's down to the county council what they decide to do.
Well, that's the question. I'm sorry, John, while we're on that, please, can I just ask on that school bit? Because I'm very, very confused. Obviously, there's a lot of Unity Trust schools now in Haverhill. I think it's all but 2. Have you got any other sites where the trusts take over the school instead of the county council? Because I'm confused. It seems to you go to the with the 106 to the county councils. Is there anywhere else where you've gone straight to a trust instead of a county council? Chris?
Not. I can't say that doesn't exist and isn't controlled.
No, I'm just talking about Redrow.
Through planning consents. It's not something that I have personally had any experience of with permissions that we've delivered at Redrow. Typically, a scenario is such as we find ourselves here, where there is a planning permission, county council as education authority have are the expected delivery party for
Right.
that school on that land, and there is ultimately a land transfer trigger at a certain point. And then I think it will be for the county council as education authority to decide what they will do in terms of the planning process for the school site, because as I understand it, there's two routes. The county council could submit a reserve matters to West Suffolk District Council for the school proposals, or under the county council's planning powers, they obviously also have rights to determine their own education applications. So that will be for the education department at Suffolk County Council to make a decision on, I presume. That's my understanding.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Barnes?
Yeah, so yeah, normally they county council tend to do their own thing, and the West Suffolk will be just a consultee as usual. Couple of other little things. One is I sent you an email last week when you were on holiday. If you can get around to answering that for me.
Also, yeah.
And the final thing, just to let you know, your and it's related to all of this, but and I think this, I don't know whether you're still using can't think of the name of the firm, your Great Wolseley Park, sorry, Redrow Great Wolseley Park.co.uk website's not working.
This was brought to my attention, John, just before I went on annual leave. I'm looking at that.
Okay.
And it's been some time since we provided any significant updates on that site. Now, we are going to be sharing these emerging proposals with residents, and what I've got to do is either get that website back online and add this information to it, or we'll be putting another website with a similar link into the public domain.
No,
so
yeah,
I'm aware it's not there at the moment, but there will be something on the internet for people to access this information.
I'll drop you a line about the other one as well, because I think that one needs to be removed. Okay, lovely. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, just a quick one, really. It's probably maybe too much detail, but lots of lovely open green spaces here, which is great to see. But can I just ask, when you going into detail, that it's not all neatly manicured lawns, and we do have some areas set aside for wildflowers? Thank you.
Of course. Councillor Smith, funnily enough, I was seeking some some photographs that were taken just last week. Sorry, they were taken some weeks ago, but I saw them being circulated last week. A colleague took some beautiful shots of some of our wildflower in full colour, full technicolor. And it looked absolutely stunning at this site. And I wanted to show you that that's there, it's being delivered. There is a lot that we're doing actually to incorporate that type of planting into our schemes, and there's obviously a big move in the planning system to get more biodiversity gain through soft landscape design and proposals, and we're very much committed to doing that, rather than everything being close cut and highly manicured as you sort of the traditional sort of vision that people have of new development sites. We obviously want our schemes to present really, really well, and in the current market, presentation is fantastically important. We must make sure we're committed to making sure that these schemes, our Redrow sites, look the very best. But we're also committed to getting that type of wildflower planting for biodiversity, net gain, and value into our schemes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. I've got one particular, and I think Councillor Smith, his first question. Oh, and then I'll come on to Councillor Andre, sorry. But I must ask you this, because he touched on it, Councillor Smith. Affordable, he said affordable houses, but my subject is affordable rented houses. Now that you're saying 80%, that's round about roughly, my maths are not that great, roughly around about £800 or £900 a month in this area, which is not cheap. But obviously, I don't know the way you've negotiated it with the local council, but there's nothing about 60% affordable rented housing on both these big sites that we've got coming, which is not very nice, because that makes it a lot more affordable for people that don't get much money, don't earn much money. But what I'm really trying to ask you really is, wouldn't it help you as a builder, because of the present climate, to build these houses, these affordable rented houses and flats? Obviously, you'll get income coming in, because the local authorities or the local housing association pay you for them, or I don't know how that sort of system works. So, they pay you, and then obviously they get the rent for it. So wouldn't that help Redrow to sort of start building them, so that they get some income coming in?
Well, you're absolutely right, Councillor Hannon, that Redrow, there is every incentive for Redrow to be building out affordable housing in a timely manner, and that's essentially because the way it works is that the planning permission that's granted secures what the affordable housing requirement is. That's what we're legally required to build when we've come along and acquired this site with that permission. What then happens is we build affordable, the affordable housing is secured by the reserve matters approval, what types of houses and how big they are and where they're going and how they're distributed and what the tenure split is in different parts of the site. That's all secured by the permission. We then work through building this out, and then as if we call the affordable housing phases of that affordable housing are built and completed, affordable housing registered providers will be looking to acquire that from Redrow so that they can manage and operate that affordable housing stock. So from Redrow's perspective, we take it as far as we build it in accordance with the permission. We invite registered providers from the local and regional area to essentially make offers to acquire that affordable housing. We're required to make sure that it is built and made available for occupation by a certain trigger, and that's how the system works. And then the acquiring registered provider will be responsible for managing and making available that affordable housing in accordance with the rules, the regulations in relation to that stock. So I can only really comment on it up to a certain point, given my my scope of remit, which is town planning. But there is no disincentive for Redrow, let me say this, to not be building out and selling this affordable housing. It's very important to us, and as we go through the scheme, to be working with a partner we know is going to be acquiring 10, 15, 20, 30 units at a time from us, and we've got targets to meet to get that housing built, handed over to them. It's really important to us. It's important for our business model and annual budgeting to make sure that this affordable housing is being delivered consistently as we build these through the scheme.
Is the 80% and 60%, is the 80% government? You must build 80% of affordable rented housing.
That is a planning policy. So that's come from a planning policy position at West Suffolk District Council that's basically said, look, in major developments or housing developments of a certain threshold in this district, where there is affordable housing, we want there to be a tenure split between, in favour, 80% for affordable rented accommodation and balance 20% being for intermediate shared ownership housing. Now, in other districts, that percentage split can vary. It's an 80-20% split in West Suffolk, and that's where it comes from.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Andre.
Thank you, Chris, for a brilliant presentation. Our main concern about affordable housing is if you keep doing less than the 30% as you progress, there'll be a great big lump of affordable housing all grouped together in what is probably the worst part of the whole site. How do you avoid that situation where you end up with a affordable housing ghetto?
Councillor Andre, I think that's I see how you frame the question. That's not a realistic depiction whatsoever. If I could sort of politely sort of rebut the sort of the positioning of the question. So, as I explained before, the planning permission that was granted by West Suffolk way back in 2018 for this site for the whole 2,500 homes secured affordable housing at 30%. That would need to be delivered on a sort of parcel phase by phase basis. However, because there's so much infrastructure in this site, too big, very expensive new junctions and a significant amount of infrastructure, spine road and drainage to get this site underway and delivered. And all this infrastructure, of course, including these junctions, needed to serve not just the first few hundred homes, but the whole 2,500 homes. That, as I understand it, what happened was there was a negotiation around by the applicant and the local planning authority around how that 30% would be delivered, with it being at a slightly lower level to begin with, to enable the infrastructure to be infrastructure to be viable to be delivered. Then it would jump to a slightly higher level as you went through a series of ratchets, I suppose you could describe it, so that once you got to the end of the scheme, 30% of the total 2,500 will be affordable. Now, the way in which West Suffolk would expect that affordable to be delivered will be on a parcel, phase by phase basis, and within those parcels, they will also expect the affordable housing to be in no greater number than a certain number in a cluster. So you will see from our original permission for A1, A2 and A8, our clusters are distributed. They're fairly equitably distributed in terms of manageable amounts to make it viable for registered providers to manage that stock in parts of the site, to make it attractive, viable for them to do that, and also to ensure that it's a well integrated new community of open market, private and affordable tenure dwellings, and to create that balanced community. I don't think there's any prospect of us creating anything like ghettos or very, very heavily weighted affordable housing areas or parcels at the back end of the scheme. That's not how the planning permission is structured and framed.
Thanks, Chris. That's reassuring. I have to say, I didn't realise the term ghetto would be quite so upsetting to hear. But accept my apologies for overstating.
I've heard the term used before. I don't think it's there's no way, in my understanding, that how the planning permission is structured with the legal agreement, that the council don't have local planning authority, to give it the proper name, don't have all of the control mechanisms to properly influence a very well-designed scheme through the whole of Great Wolseley Park to ensure it's a well-integrated, balanced community with tenure blind development throughout all of the development.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else want to ask any questions at all? No? All right, thank you very much, Chris, and thank you very much. Sorry, but my
Harriet.
Harriet, sorry, my little
No worries.
arrow is right over your Christian name.
Right.
I couldn't remember it.
You can call me Willa.
No, that reminds me of school.
I'd like to thank Harriet as well for putting the presentation together
Yeah,
for me
thank you,
today. And so she's done a lot of work to prepare for this evening. So thank you all for listening and giving us your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. Right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Item 7, to consider planning application to West Suffolk Council. I will invite members of the public who wish to address the working party in relation to a planning application to speak ahead of the working party, considering each application in turn. And the first one is application 1, which is DC 20. Right, I think application 1 and application 2 are the same, but in different, there's different. If I read both of them, is that all right? We can take them together, but it's entirely up to you as a working party whether you want me to do that.
Chair, one of them
Councillor
is
Smith,
listed building consent.
Sorry?
Chair,
Sorry?
one of them is listed building consent. So
Oh,
yes,
right.
they're basically the same, but Councillor Smith had his hand up earlier.
Yeah, okay, Councillor Smith.
I was just going to ask if it was possible to bring item 8 forward for Mr. Johnson, is it? Yeah, to save him hanging around for the whole of the meeting, if that would be a wise thing to do.
Right, thank you very much. Okay. Is everyone in agreement with that? Yeah, okay. Application 8, which is 23019994 FUL, demolition of existing building on site and the erection of 64-bed care home, use class 2 in brackets, together with access, car parking, landscaping and associated works. And this is the Woodlands Hotel, Coopers Road, Sturmer exit, Essex. Ian?
Yes, thank you very much. Firstly, I'm very concerned that I've read all the documents that have been submitted by the developers, and there's no mention of the path through the woods, which links the permissive path at the bottom of the driving range with the Willsey Farm track to the north of the woodlands. This footpath is an integral requirement for the link between the planned new country park and East Town Park. If this link is not recognised or maintained, it will be detrimental to the public being able to enjoy both parks as a coherent whole. The footpath has been enjoyed by the public for over 15 years, and although suspiciously recently there's been an attempt to block one end by dumping hedge cuttings, it is still passable and it is still in use. And if you want to have a look on Google Earth, you can see a large section of the northern part of the track. It seems ironic to me that the developers of an Alzheimer's home want us to forget the footpath exists. I would ask the town council to require the maintenance of this footpath by the developers as a condition of planning consent. And the second point I'd like to make is they've submitted a landscape and visual appraisal report. And in paragraph 314, it refers to Haverhill Vision 2031. And this states that a potential link road will pass to the west of the site between the existing housing edge and the site. Now that is through the driving range. And the link road was opposed by the town council in the consultations and by myself representing 350 residents at the time of the planning inquiry. And the planning inspector could find no justification whatsoever for such a road to join the couples road for the new estate. So a link road was dropped by the council from the plans, and I don't want to see it resurrected, and I hope the town council supports that. That's basically what I wish to say.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you very much. Councillor Burns and then Councillor Smith.
Right. Thank you. Ian said one of the things I was going to say anyway. The link road is a non-starter. That's just history. That was when certain group of people wanted an easy way of getting to the golf course from their homes in northwest Haverhill. That's been rejected totally as part of the outline permission for Great Wolseley Park. Councillor Brown and myself, who's unfortunately not here tonight, spent many meetings and hours discussing West Suffolk about this site, going back probably about 6 years maybe. And I've actually made a formal complaint to them last week. One of the agreements we had was that whilst we objected strongly to the existing house being knocked down because of historical values it's got to the town, they primarily just let it go to rack and ruin by not putting any security on the building, not protecting it in any way. And now they've said, oh, the only way we can do anything is knock it down. So they're the ones who destroyed the building in the first place. Secondly, it was agreed as part of all those meetings that there would be a restaurant type facility at that site, primarily to not only serve the care home, but also to serve the nearby country park that's planned for that area, as Ian just mentioned. That is nowhere to be seen. It's basically just been totally ignored. Also, the transport assessment, and we said this many times over the years, there is no footpath along Couples Road to safely get from any bus stop or walk there or whatever you want to do. We know what the road is like. It's very narrow in places. It's a bus route as well. And if you get two buses coming along at the same time, one has to stop to allow the other to scrape past. So basically West Suffolk have renegaded on their agreement that we had. I've got it in writing from them. And I'm pretty disgusted that they've allowed this to go through. Now, it is in Braintree, just all by a few yards. But I also noticed that the planning officer has already basically said, nothing to do with us, mate. We'll let Braintree determine this. We've got no comments to make. And I've actually gone back to them and said, is that because this is West Suffolk selling this land? So I'm not overly happy about this. I am waiting for a response from West Suffolk. Councillor Brown has supported me on this, about this. So although these are not necessarily planning things, they are agreements that were made by West Suffolk with its own members, that this is what they would make sure would happen. So we're not only potentially losing that footpath that Ian talks about, which I agree was always agreed as part of the long established meetings we had about Great Wolseley itself, excuse me, but we're also losing the facility that we had hoped would be there for people to enjoy a meal out and go around and walk around the country park. Not going to be there now. So I have great problems with this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
All right. Although I, yes, I agree totally everything Councillor Burns has said about what's happened to the building or whatever, and what should have happened. The fact is, it's in, as you said, it's in Braintree. At the end of the day, the decision is not going to be ours, but we can sort of put certain conditions there. One of those conditions obviously would be the footpath linking to the park track. Take the application as it is. I think it's a good looking building, and I wouldn't have any problem with it going up. I think the design of it is superb. I think the attention to detail is great. But they do also say that in their paperwork that they've been having discussions about this site for 4 years. So are you saying then that they've been talking to West Suffolk at the same time you've been talking to West Suffolk? Yeah, okay. That's seems a bit strange, isn't it? But anyway, other than that, the footpath, well, it can be conditions as far as I'm concerned. But as an application in its own right, I think it's a nice looking building. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any more comments at all? Councillor Cox. You're muted.
Right,
That's
Yeah.
it?
can you still hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
good.
Yeah,
Um,
and see you.
it's I'll be honest. I think what Councillor Burns said was interesting. Because obviously I'm not aware of anything historical. I'd be interested to see about the building, because I did read that they said there are some Grade 2 listed buildings on the site that weren't going to be touched and were going to be okay, according to some of the reports there. And it's something really daft that just probably aggravated me. So I just thought, it's a really small point. But it was also the fact that because it's supposedly under Braintree Council, there was a real sort of push to say, well, that Sybil Headingham Library should be getting funding. And it's like, well, nobody's going to go to Sybil Headingham Library from there. So we need to be encouraging any funding that stays in Haverhill. So I had an issue with that, which isn't necessarily anything to do with the application as such. I just had an issue with the fact that, you know, the whole situation is bizarre, that you know, it's supposedly in Braintree, but I just had an issue with the fact that there is a library funding issue coming from this that I just thought was bizarre, which, as I say, I'm raising it only on the basis that it seemed a bit bizarre, but it doesn't necessarily affect the application. And just to clarify what John said, John, when you're saying the building, is it just that people liked that building, or is it the fact that there's anything particularly interesting about that particular building?
Historically, it was owned by the Gertine family, and in particular John Vintner Gertine, who was a Battle of Britain pilot who died in the Second World War, and it was in the family for quite a while. It then eventually it has been extended over the years, and eventually it became a restaurant, as we know, or in fact became a hotel first of all, as it's called, Woodlands Hotel, and then eventually a restaurant. When the tenants moved out, as I said, West Suffolk just abandoned the building, did nothing to it. We made all kinds of suggestions about what they should be doing, but then people came in and started ripping off roof tiles and everything else. And all that West Suffolk did was pay £300 a day for a security guard to sit there in the hope that they would stop anything. But whilst that security guard was there, more vandalism took place. Rather than putting any cameras up or anything like that, they didn't bother. So they spent an inordinate amount of money supposedly protecting the building, but actually did nothing to it, to the state that it's in now, where the only solution is to knock it down, unfortunately.
Just for clarification, that's Braintree District Council that should have been doing that, but not West Suffolk, surely.
It's owned by West Suffolk.
Oh, West Suffolk bought it.
Yeah, they've owned it for years. Yeah.
Okay, I'll see why now. Councillor Andre. Thank you, Councillor Cox.
I share the concerns everybody's had about how we arrived at this position, but the assessment of the condition quite clearly shows it is not salvageable. It's got to be knocked down. And if it has got to be knocked down, I can't think of a better use than a care home, quite frankly. We need spaces in care homes. We need modern, properly developed spaces in care homes. I accept what's been said already, that we need to ensure the footpath is protected. Solid concrete protection, not just chatter between councillors, but an actual commitment to make sure it's protected. And I think we should also seek some sort of contribution towards improving pedestrian access along that road, because it is a nightmare. Thanks, Chair.
Good point.
But can I
Yeah, Councillor Burns.
Only just to clarify, Councillor Andre's comment, is that all along through the discussions, we've always known it was going to be a care home. That was always the plan. So there's never a problem with that. And we encourage that as a potential use. It's actually the fact is that the building was allowed to, although it's been allowed to deteriorate, it was agreed with West Suffolk officers that as part of the sale, that it would be also a replacement restaurant come dining area, whatever, would be provided for visitors who go to the care home, but also for the country park. And that was always planned. So that's what we're pretty disgusted about, that has all been ignored.
Okay, thank you. Colin.
Chair, thank you. Just an observation. Do we know if the site is still owned by West Suffolk District Council, or they've actually already sold it to this developer?
I think they sold it because there were all kinds of problems. For example, Sturmer owned the bit of grass next to it, which is actually classified as Sturmer's Village Green, in a weird location. So what happened was West Suffolk had to purchase an alternative piece of land actually in the village of Sturmer to replace it. So there's been all kinds of strain. There's been the right of parking from the golf course on that site, and there's also another strip of land to the, I think it's the east of it, which is also in dispute. So I suspect that's why it's taken so long to do it.
Okay, I was only going to suggest that if West Suffolk District Council still own the land, they simply retain the bit with the footpath on it, because it's not they don't need to sell it. So if it's going to be kept as a footpath, it doesn't need to be sold along with the rest of the land. And then there's no question over whether or not we need to trust the developer to follow through with retaining the footpath. West Suffolk can simply retain the footpath, but if it's sold, it's sold.
If it hasn't been, if I may come back. One thing to consider, and you're quite right there, Colin, about that, is to make sure that not only that is protected, and also what I mentioned about the road, although I don't know how you're ever going to get that, is that the property people actually talk to the planners of West Suffolk, who know full well what the plans are for that site in terms of the country park and everything. It seems to me they're working in isolation once again, which is pretty par for the course.
Okay, Councillor Cox.
I don't know if am I still muted? Can you hear me? No. Okay.
I can hear you.
Obviously there's quite a few things been mentioned, and I think that one of the biggest things was what Councillor Smith said, which was, what sway do we have, because I don't know who owns it now, if it's under Braintree or whatever. But I mean, if John's already Councillor Burns is already suggesting the fact that he's been writing, is there a more significant way of all putting our names to whatever John's doing to show a little bit more discontent? I certainly wouldn't mind John putting my name towards anything he's doing based on what's been said. But I don't know how else we bring things to bear, because if things are already being ignored, well, what's the next step we can do? Because there's already very clearly been discussions. I think the other point as Colin made, we need to clarify, is it been sold yet? Is it still under West Suffolk's ownership? If those points can be clarified, then a lot of this argument perhaps could be dispelled with in the first place. I mean, for me, I think what I'm picking up, I don't think anybody's objecting to the care home. I think there's a sort of a support for that. I think it's that some of the details that are an issue. And if there is a restaurant supposed to be over there, I'd quite like to see that still remain. I think that would be an important part of Haverhill as a town still developing and providing certain sort of services. And if that was something that was agreed, it would be nice to sort of ensure that still happens.
Yes, I fully agree with what you're saying, Councillor Cox. Colin, how do we stand as far as, you know, because it's nothing to do with the planning application, is it? What we're asking for, the path, is that might be to do with the planning application, but I don't know about the restaurant. How do you think we go on this?
I think you can make a consultation response in respect of the proposal. You can ask that a condition is set for the footpath to be retained. I guess you can raise the question of whether obviously there'll be some form of restaurant. The people in the care home are going to have to eat somewhere or other, and it may well be the intention to open that to the public. I think, given my understanding of the care home in Millfields Way, they actually quite welcome people coming and going to get a kind of more natural kind of restaurant feel about things. So you can say anything you want about any planning application. Whether the planners regard it as material is a different matter. And I think in terms of whether or not West Suffolk District Council retain any sway over the land as the vendor of the land, then that's not part of this planning application or our comments. It's for district councillors present to take that back to the district council directly and say, well, do the district council still own the land? Has it all been settled? Can they retain some of the land? Can they put some form of covenant on the sale that protects the footpath? But that's nothing to do with what we respond at this moment.
Thank you very much. But we can still put in about the restaurant, can't we?
Well, absolutely. Councillor Andre has his hand up, by the way.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Colin, for that. Councillor Andre.
In the application form, although the names of owners and agricultural tenants are redacted, their addresses aren't. So we know, for instance, that Essex County Council is one of the owners or agricultural tenants, as is West Suffolk Council, as is the golf club. They're all listed as, well, redacted the names, but their addresses are all listed as owners or agricultural tenants. Every planning application has to have the bit notification that you told the owners you're applying for planning permission.
Thank you for that, Councillor Andre. Councillor Cox.
Just another last point, and I'm perhaps being finicky, but going back to the idea that the counterpart from West Suffolk who absolved himself from all responsibility, I think, for me, I'm also not particularly happy the fact that he just showed no interest in, because I did read that. He just said, no, you get on with it as how you see fit. Now, I don't know if that's, again, my sort of learning experience, if that's a standard practice, but I'd like that to be addressed from us as well, to say we're not happy that you just did not show any interest in something that's affecting our town. That to me is an appalling way to behave. And I personally, I'd like something sent in addressing that doesn't happen again. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know, but that's just a thought. And obviously, I'll close my comments there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith.
I think there may be an element there of not treading on people's toes in a different authority. But if we can move this on, as far as what I'm getting here is that people, as you say, people are not objecting to the actual application, the building of this home, but there are certain things that we want conditions. So I'd propose then that we go neutral, but with the comments that we've raised about the retention of the footpath, the possibility of West Suffolk keeping hold of that bit of footpath to make it safer, and also, and if you want to put any comments about the restaurant being retained, or has been mentioned previously about a restaurant being part of the application. So, because because I don't think we can say support if we're actually just putting these things in there. So I would say neutral.
Thank you for that. Thanks for that proposal. Councillor Burns.
Obviously, I'm not seconding it, but just be wary of the neutral stance, because when you go neutral, the plan is ignore the comments mostly. They are not any form of objection. And I think Ian's comment about the footpath is to me is an objection to the existing plans, which basically erase that footpath. And also what I've said about the transport assessment in terms of no footpath along Couples Road, or safe access for people who, in theory, according to their transport assessment, people are going to walk to work from there. Yeah, we know it ain't going to happen, but you know, so that's the problem with neutral. You know, it's neither supporting nor objecting. But if you don't comment on that, people, things like Ian's thing on the footpath will probably be sidelined and ignored.
Councillor Smith, do you want to change your mind, or do you want to keep it as it is?
Is that Councillor Burns' opinion that don't take any notice, or is that a fact? Because
that's what I've been told at all the planning briefings I've ever been to at West Suffolk.
Colin, I see he's just put his hand up.
Yeah, Chair, I would agree with Councillor Burns. If you want to guarantee that the planning officer takes notice of the concerns raised, then the committee would be better off objecting, because they can't ignore that. They really shouldn't do what Councillor Burns is describing, but I think it's entirely reasonable to expect that that's a possibility. And I don't think we want that possibility to happen. Would be my comment.
Thank you very much for advice, Colin. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
okay, I'll amend that to object then, but to give broadly supportive comments about the whole process, but the fact that we can't support it because of the points being raised around the footpath.
Okay. Can I have a seconder to that, please? I just saw Councillor Cox just start his hand up. You're very close. Right, Councillor Cox, second that. Do you wish to speak on that, Councillor Cox? Anything on that? No?
No,
right.
happy.
Proposal? Right, thank you very much. All those in favour, please show. Yep, that's carried. Right, thank you, Ian. Thank
you very much. And enjoy the rest of your meeting, gentlemen. But thank you very much for the consideration.
We should finish by midnight.
Good night, then.
Right.
Good night.
Right. Right. The application 1 and application 2. All I can see the difference is between the two, and I will read application 2 out. But I think application, it doesn't exist. There's a couple of things, which is external works on application 1, and the other one was removing existing night safe. So I shall read out application 2 because they're similar. The wording's similar. Right, this is DC 23 1201 LB, and application 2 is DC 20. Application 1 is DC 23 1200 FUL. And I'll read application 2, which is a small a, removal of external existing signage, lettering, projecting sign, CCTV, and small b, removing existing ATM and replacing window glazing. Small c, removing existing night safe and infill aperture. Small d, remove internal counter and glazing partition and doors. And this is Barclays Bank PLC 39 High Street. Is there any comments on these two applications? Councillor Burns?
don't have a problem with it. I've been complaining for years about the Heritage England listing, which basically says Barclays Bank destroyed the inside of the bank on their listing. One thing that worries me slightly is, and I may have missed it, so apologise if I have, and I agree totally with, by the way, the conservation officer comments. There are 2 ATMs on that bank, one on the side flank wall and one on the front wall. The one on the front is was a window originally, so that's going to go back. The one on the side wall was actually not a window; it was actually a brick thing. And the conservation officer's comments has to obviously apply to both of those openings, where she talks about the replacement of the glazing, but what are we doing about the one on the flank wall? It doesn't mention that at all, unless I've missed it in the thing, but I looked through most of the documents. Thank you.
Yeah, on both application 1 and 2, it does say window glazing on the
But the one on the flank wall is not window, that was solid wall.
Right, thank you. Yeah, just to clarify, there's no wall on there. Okay, any other comments at all? Colin?
Thank you, Chair. I don't know how many members here have had the opportunity to look inside the HSBC building, but getting listed building consent to remove the internal counter and internal doors, I wonder whether members might think it worthwhile having a condition that actually the removal is done with due respect, whatever the right word is, due consideration to the listed building status. The HSBC building, they have actually left the counter, but they've removed the doors and they've removed lots of other features. I think they employed large gorillas with enormous sledgehammers to do the work. So those doors were removed in the most destructive possible way, rendering the building practically useless. And it's one of the reasons why it sits empty today. So getting permission to remove the doors, I think it would be really useful to be absolutely clear that it's not to be done in such a way that the building is destroyed. It's a listed building for a reason. Thank you, Chair.
Colin, could we put an objection in on that they must, would a wording like from the last one, would the word in objection, and then the wording you just said?
I would ask for conditions to be set in this particular case, that they respect the listed building consent, and I'm sure the conservation officer will pick up on that.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. Councillor Andre.
I've had occasion to use Barclays Bank, and I believe the listing is entirely to do with the facade outside and absolutely nothing to do with the inside. As to the HSBC Bank, that's clearly a case of a hasty purchase and no one's thought what they're going to do with it. I think we should just accept this and let them get on with it. Let's get the front restored to how it should be. It's quite clear in the Conservation's report that the side ATM is to be bricked up, or should be bricked up, with appropriate style of bricks and mortar as the original. No problem with that.
Okay. Councillor Burns.
Really very quickly, Councillor, I was referring to the conservation officer's comments because they don't mention that on their comments, only the one with the window at the front. The design and access statement mentions it, but not her.
Councillor Cox.
I think in terms of everything's been said, I think it's quite simple that we would set some sort of condition that just says, we would expect it to be, vacated with reasonable due care and attention for a Grade 2 listed building. Whether it's, and I agree with Councillor Andre, it probably is to do with the outside, because when you look inside Barclays Bank, there isn't anything particularly old now. It's all quite a modern building inside, but I think it still should be the fact that it's dealt with due care and attention when they're vacating the building. And if they were to do that, I don't think we've got a problem with it because they've gone anyway. But it's just treat the whole building inside and out with due care and attention when leaving.
Okay, is that a proposal, Councillor Cox?
Absolutely, it could be, but I don't know how that's then phased in, because I think, as Colin said, it's more I don't know what word he used now. It wasn't an objection, but more something else.
It would be a condition.
So we would put it as a condition that, yeah, we agree, but the condition is that's what they have to do.
Okay. We'll get to wording really, because what we normally say, if we don't object, is neutral, is what we would normally say. So we say neutral, but with conditions. Okay, is that your proposal, Councillor Quinn?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Is there anyone else want to comment at all before I ask for a seconder? No. Right. Can I have a seconder for that proposal then from Councillor Quinn? Councillor Andre. Okay. All those in favour, please show. Yeah, that's carried. Thank you. Application 3, which is DC 23 1230 HH. Small a, single story front extension. Small b, recladding all elevations. Small c, single story rear extension. In brackets, following demolition of existing conservatory. This is Mr. and Mrs. Julian Long. Long Drive. Mr. and Mrs. Julian Long Drive. I think that's what it is, because it's got Long Drive, comma, so I hope that is it. Apologies for that. Ratting Road, any comments on this one? No? Okay, can I propose with neutral, please? Councillor Dave Smith, seconded by Councillor Cox. All those in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you. Application 4, DC 23 1081 HH, small a, 2-story side extension. Small b, enlargement of first floor window to front elevation. And this is Mr. and Mrs. M. Nicholson, 11 Constable Road. Any comments on this one, on application 4? No. May I ask for a proposal for neutral? Councillor Smith, can I have a seconder for the neutral, please? Councillor Cox. All those in favour, please show. That's carried. Application 5, DC 23 1281 TPO, 2 Lime, T1 and T2 on plan in brackets, fell. Ms. Charlie Rosa, Remus Management, 38 Tudor Close. In this, it says tree owners, Remus Management, will be responsible for replacing. Oh, that's my comment. Sorry, apologies. And this is 38 Tudor Close. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, who says? I know they're leaning at an angle. Who says they're actually falling? Though, are they falling? I mean, I don't really see any trees chopped down. But if that's the case, if the structural survey, what they call it, says they are falling down, then glad to see that being replaced. 2 trees. It says appropriate.
They are leaning quite heavily on the photo.
Yeah, but anyway, so they're saying it's the appropriate tree, or company's choice of trees, which seems a bit strange. I think we should be, or perhaps the local authority should be saying what type of trees is planted there and what's appropriate to the location. And it's important. I think it's important also that they're not just saplings like 2 foot high, which could break quite easily. And if they do die off again, are they going to keep replaced until they get established? Otherwise, they might put any old rubbish in there, mightn't they? That's just my thoughts I got written down here anyway.
Thank you very much for that. My faults entirely, actually. I read that last bit out. I was going to say. Right. Any other comments at all on this? No? Right, I want to propose it then. Are you proposing anything, Councillor Smith?
I just, well, it's neutral, but a bit more clarity on what they're actually going to put there is what I'd like, what they're actually going to replace them with.
And what size?
Juvenile trees.
You want juvenile trees? Is that what you're
Is that the
asking?
correct expression for trees? I don't know. If you get baby trees and old trees, perhaps we've got juvenile trees. I don't know the terminology, but basically ones that are semi-established rather than just saplings.
Okay. Any other comments at all? No? Can I have a second of Councillor Smith's proposal, please? I second that. Oh, sorry. Right, all those in favour, please show. Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Items, applications, all right. Application 6, DC 23 1280. This is TPO. 1 Norway Maple, T1 on plan, in brackets, and 1 Field Maple, T2 on plan, in brackets, fell. And this is Haverhill Housing Partnership in 8 and 9 Sterling Drive. Any comments on these two trees? Councillor Cox.
Looking at the restrictions, they're supposed to have tree preservation orders, but I didn't see anything written in the previous case where it was trees will be replaced. They did say, I think it was these two, that it seems to be that the trees are at fault for causing subsidence, if this is the one. Is this the one? Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah.
So I don't think there's a problem sort of having them taken down, but there's nothing saying they're going to replace them. So again, you know, where you're looking at what some of the I'm saying restrictions, can't remember what the terminology when I looked at the application, it wasn't restrictions, it's the hang on, I shall probably be able to tell you. No, I can't tell you. Yes, I can. Hang on. No, I can't tell you. I won't. But no, I didn't see it was a problem, because if it's causing subsidence, then I'd want to support them. But it'd just be nice to think the fact that if they're going to take trees down, can they be replaced?
Thank you for that. Councillor Andre and then Councillor Smith.
There's a substantial report on the damage the roots are doing, not just to the subsidence, but to the pipes and supplies to the building. It's clearly not sensible to replace a tree in a place where it's damaging. I fully think we should fully support this and leave it at that, support the application. Whether or not trees are planted, I think it's unwise to recommend that trees be planted where there's already damage being caused by mature trees.
Are you proposing that then?
I'm proposing that we support it.
Right, okay. Councillor Cox, have you got any comments at all?
No, I understand what Councillor Andre's saying, and I agree. And I wasn't thinking you just then replace them in the same spot, but it could be slightly further away where there isn't any damage. It was only on the basis that obviously consistency, if we're saying that there should be tree preservation, you know, how are we trying to sort of make sure that we're not losing trees? Totally agree with what Councillor Andre said. That I support the application, but I just think, could we not be suggesting trees are put somewhere else just to maintain the level of trees we have? I don't know. This again, it's a learning experience for me seeing this.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Smith. I just want some sort of clarification on what Councillor Andre said. Right, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, it's not unheard of for us to ask for replacement trees to be in a different place, you know, where it has caused structural damage. We've had that before. A district when that's come up, so I don't think that's out of the question. One of the differences I noticed between this application and the previous one was the previous one they're talking about grinding out the stuff. This one they're just talking about treating them so they don't grow anymore. So I'd rather see them ground out, I'd take them away completely rather than leaving sort of like stubs there. So I wonder if we can make that as a condition that they actually grind them out.
Yeah. Councillor Andre, do you want to sort of comment on the two trees replacement? Because of what Councillor Smith said and the grinding out.
It wouldn't be unreasonable to expect a large organisation like Haverhill to replace the trees, not necessarily even on the same plot. So I think it's entirely reasonable to say that there ought to be some replacement, some quid pro quo. As for the grinding or the poisoning of the roots, it makes no difference. The roots will go one way or the other.
Councillor Smith, you got any? Yeah, I thought you might do. Councillor Smith.
I'm thinking more of what's happening above the ground. You know, we don't want sort of like unsightly stubs. That's just what I was thinking. So did Councillor Andre propose? Yeah, he proposed that we would have 2 replacement trees with his proposal. Okay. Of support. He supported this taken out, but with the proposal of having 2 trees as well. But he still thinks that what they're saying about, you know, putting poison down or whatever it is okay. So have you noted the comment of what Councillor Smith said about above ground, Councillor Andre? Have you got any words to say on that?
I don't think it makes any difference. What we're doing here is dealing with the roots that are damaging the property. And this isn't a, you know, some fly-by-night organisation. This is Haverhill. They know what they're doing. Okay. Well, Councillor Smith, you okay with that? Yeah. Because
I'll second that. Go on, I'll second it.
Oh, right, there you go. Right, okay. So it's Councillor Smith second. All those in favour, please show that proposal. Okay, that's carried. And this is application 8. This is 23-01994 FUL. Demolition of existing building on site and the erection of 64-bed. Oh, we've had that.
We seem to miss 7.
Yeah, we've just done that, haven't we? I do apologise. I've got suntan lotion in my eyes and it's really stinging. I was out today with my grandson. Right, application 9, which is DC 23.
Chair 7, we haven't done. We haven't done 7.
Oh, right. Do apologise with my eyes. Right, application 7, which is DC 23-1203 FUL. 1 dwelling following demolition of side extension to 19A Hamlet Road. Mr. Anderson, land adjacent to 19A Hamlet Road. Any comments on this one? Councillor Andre.
Thank you, Chair. I would remind councillors I've been granted dispensation as I'm a neighbour to this, or in close proximity to this one. Right. A number of the people locally are complaining about the issue of the emergence of traffic from Elmhurst Close onto Hamlet Road, which is substantially affected by the cars that are parked or leaving or entering the parking bays that are advertised on this. The property opposite the other side of Hamlet, of Elmhurst Close, has been refused repeatedly permission to have a dropped curb to drive cars on and off because it's too close to the junction. Where they're proposing to put the car parking spaces for this new development is where there are double yellow lines. So it's a dangerous area. It can be a hazard to anyone turning into or out of Elmhurst Close. And that's the basis of a substantial number of objections that were raised to the prior application. I'm a bit concerned because I know there are objections that have been submitted that have yet to appear on the planning portal. And it's not unusual for planning comments to take 4 or 5 days to arrive. So I suspect there may be others on their way for this at the moment. But my main objection remains that, and the objection of most of the people around this area, that it's moving cars on and off in the position they proposed would be hazardous to traffic using the junction. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Any comments at all? Any other comments? Councillor Smith?
So can you clarify that? So you're saying that the house opposite doesn't have a drop curb, yet they've got a driveway, which obviously they park vehicles on. So what you're saying, they're not supposed to do that? Is that what you're saying? Sorry. Okay. Because I found some of the comments strange, whereas because there is obviously cars that do, they're talking about the double yellow lines, and there obviously there's double yellow lines all the way along, so people do cross the double yellow lines to get onto their drive. So yeah, I can understand the reason for the danger of the closeness to the junction. Now I'm trying to remember what the rules are from the highways as to how close or how far away from a junction drop curbs must be. Can I sorry, Councillor Andre. So the danger, the reason they've been refused it across the road is because emergency vehicles having struggles to get in and out. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is they've been refused because it's too close to the junction.
I thought you mentioned something about emergency vehicles.
No, I said vehicles emerging.
Emergency. Okay, sorry.
From Elmhurst Close or driving in for that matter.
Okay,
The yellow lines extend partially down Elmhurst Close, not all the way, but where they're proposing to drive off is within the double yellow lines area.
Okay, so
I mean, the prior planning application was much more substantial than this and was obviously much more concerning. They've addressed most of the issues that were wrong with that one, apart from this parking issue.
But so like I say, from what I can see from Google Earth, is the WL lines go all the way the length of the properties on both sides of the roads. That's a fair way down, isn't it? Okay, sorry, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, double yellow lines on junctions is visual display, isn't it? If you've got parked cars there, it restricts the visual display of cars going away out of the junction or coming into the junction. That's the reason why they had these double yellow lines on junctions. Councillor Burns.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I agree with what's just being said by Councillor Andre. You know, we all know what Hamlet Road's like, with people parking what is illegally opposite Elmhurst Close on a bus route. And, you know, you just cannot see up the road, particularly when they have a white van parked there, you cannot see. So you have that problem there. People pulling in and out of Elmhurst Close. And I'll give you an example that the council rejected the drop curbs. I think it was, I can't remember the number, in Chalkstone Way, which is quite close to Couples Road. They objected, and it's probably about the same distance we're talking about here. They objected to that because it was too close to the junction. So although there's not necessarily a planning thing, because that's a county council side of things, that needs to be taken into account. And, you know, having three vehicles, as they're showing on their diagrams, potentially pulling out into the road where people coming round into Elmhurst from either side of Hamlet Road, you know, could potentially create a conflict of some sort. As has been said, the single dwelling is a lot better than it was, but even so, it seems to be, you know, it's building in someone's back garden at the end of the day. And, you know, things were built all those years ago for a purpose with all that space. Now they're just filling it in and, you know, trying to obviously make some money for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thanks. I was just looking for a bit of clarification, really. Anyway, in that case, I'd like to propose that we object it on the grounds of the highways issues.
Okay. Any other comments on that? No. Can I have a seconder for the objection? Councillor Cox. Okay. All those in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you very much. Right, last but not least, application 9, DC 23-1338 HH, small a, single story front extension. Colin?
You're at the 2-hour mark for the meeting. Do you want to adjourn, or do you want to suspend standing orders to finish the business at hand?
We're on the last application. I propose that we suspend standing orders. Is there any comments on that? No? Right. Can I have a seconder for that then, please? Councillor Smith. All those in favour? Yeah, it's carried. Thank you. Application 9, which is DC 23-1338 HH, small a, single story front extension, small b, 2-story rear extension, following demolition of existing single story rear extension. And this is Mrs. Zoe Stewart, 33 Mill Hill. Okay, yeah. I've noticed that one of the comments was this is the same extension as number 35. I don't know what that's got to do with it. This is a planning application. Okay, Councillor Cox.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you know, there's been the same extension put next door. So is it going to cause any problems as the fact that they've already done it next door? So I just propose that we would accept it. I don't see any problem from what I've read.
Yeah, the reason I said that, we have to take each application on its own merits, really.
I understand that. It was just a case of the fact that it's already been done next door. I had a quick look, see if there was any objections from the previous extension, and I couldn't find anything. So I was looking at the fact that I wouldn't find any objections to this.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments at all? No? Do you propose neutral then, Councillor Cox?
Yeah.
Okay, can I have a seconder for neutral then, please? Councillor Andre. All those in favour, please show. Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Get back to the agenda now. And this is item 8, which is matters report to enable members to exchange any urgent planning matters. Anyone comment at all? Councillor Andre.
Councillor Brown and I have both received submissions from a local business in Falconer Road, which is one of the industrial estates as you carry on down towards Sturma, about an application, a development that's underway and doesn't seem to have any planning consent. Raise the issue and pass it on to Uni at the town council, who's passed it on to West Suffolk. I now understand that the enforcement team have visited the site and are now delaying enforcement until a planning application can be submitted. I think personally this is outrageous. If they've started a development without planning consent, we really need to establish, you know, that they're not allowed to do that, and we need to stop them working while the planning consent is applied for. I'll share the pictures of where they're at. It's distressing a local business because the local business concerned has himself had to go through the process of planning consent for their business. And this, can you see the site there?
Yeah.
There is absolutely no planning application for any of the work on there. And this is how far advanced it is. Given that it's on Falconer Road. As you turn right into Falconer Road from, I think it's Rowley Hill, there's a right turn. Falconer Road goes to the right as well. And at the very end of that right turn is what was previously an agricultural site. The work's obviously quite advanced. You know, the building itself is quite substantial. You can see fencing has been installed with access. It's intended to be some kind of recycling facility. What I'm concerned about is we should be letting West Suffolk know that people who undertake this kind of activity without planning consent must be stopped, not just, you know, allowed to carry on and apply for planning permission. I'm asking that we contact West Suffolk Planet Development Control to say that we expect enforcement to be a bit more substantial than just please give us a planning application.
Thank you very much. Councillor Burns. Then
Well,
Councillor Smith.
Where have I heard this before with our enforcement team? There have been so many things in the last 8 years that I know of where we've reported things being done illegally, and all the enforcement team, they either have two answers. One is, well, if they applied for permission, they'd probably get it. Or secondly is, oh, we'll talk to them about getting the planning application put in. And I agree with you totally, Councillor Andre. I think we need to send a strong message to anybody, not just these people, who have not applied for any sort of planning permission, that and West Suffolk should be down on them like a ton of bricks, stopping them doing any work now. They shouldn't be allowing them to get on with something that's going to be built and then apply for retrospective planning application. And then the council will say, oh, yeah, it's good. It's brought a few jobs in and all this sort of stuff. If they've done it illegally, then they should be brought down. I mean, they'll quite happily prosecute a householder because a tree gets cut down, but stuff like this just gets bypassed by the enforcement team. Councillor Smith will know this from our numerous meetings we've had. I've had umpteen arguments with planning officers over this, and I really think we as a town council should be sending a very strong signal to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could it be because of the cost, maybe? Councillor Smith.
I know Councillor Burns was going to hit me first, so I haven't really got a lot to add to that. But yeah, it is a worrying trend that's developed where so many applications now come to development control which are retrospective because it's already been started. Yeah, you're right. We should be, well, it shouldn't be happening basically. We've got development control tomorrow, so I'll say it again to the relevant officers, but just but a letter from the council, from us, I think would probably be useful. Thank you.
Can I make a suggestion before I come to you, Councillor Andre? Could you pass that photo on to Councillor Smith, and perhaps Councillor Smith can ask the development officers to put it up on the screen to show all the others on development control, because that is such it's massive building. It really is. I've never seen anything like that without asking for planning application before, personally. Councillor Smith, what's your comments on that?
Oh, just want to say, I don't think I'll be allowed to show it at development control because it wouldn't be on the agenda. But
right.
yeah, but no problem. Sort of like it's already been forwarded on, I know, but yeah, I've got no problem with doing what I need to do.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Andre.
I would say the photos have been sent to West Suffolk Development Control, so they've got the photos. I have to say, although it may not be entirely relevant, the company Whittington Recycling Limited have done exactly this in Essex on no less than 3 prior occasions. So they've got form for it. They now think that's all they have to do, build and then get permission.
So other authorities are doing the same. It's to do with cost, isn't it? That's the thing.
It's to do with services not being provided that we're paying for.
Yeah, it's because, isn't it? I may be wrong on this, but Colin, you might help. Isn't they have to go to court to get this enforcement order to stop it? Colin?
Yes, that's correct. They would need a court order. It's a jaw-dropping piece of work they're doing without planning permission, and it's interesting that they. Councillor Andre is describing that the people developing it have form. It's uncomfortable, and you may not want to hear this particularly, but one of the considerations enforcement officers take when they're looking at something like this is the question of, if the applicant had applied for planning permission, would they have got it? And if the answer to that is probably yes, and you're not going to like this one bit, there's no further action. They can invite them to regulise it by putting in a retrospective planning application. But it's not in the public interest to spend money on legal costs, preventing people building something that they would have got planning permission for anyway. One of the considerations, I believe, may still be in the planning white paper that the government's brought forward, is to change the law on that, because it's an outrage to the people who actually follow the rules, to have companies just trampling the entire system because they know they can. It's very unpalatable, but if you think about it objectively, it does actually make sense that there's no point having enforcement action if something would have got planning permission anyway.
Thank you for that clarification, Colin. Councillor Andre.
There are other aspects to this. Because they haven't applied for planning consent, they haven't applied for building control. And because they haven't applied for building control, there are no signs, there are no safety measures, and lorries full of nasty junk are running up and down Falconer Road daily. And that's where the objection originally came from, the fact these lorries, huge lorries, were trundling up and down the road, delivering and taking away waste. So I think the aspect here isn't just about planning consent, it's about building control and about how enforcement can influence. If planning consent had been applied for, there would almost certainly have been conditions on the hours of operating, how many lorries could go in and out, and that sort of thing. None of those were in place because of planning consent. And I believe that's what they know and that's why they've done it. But I accept enforcement is pretty pointless if you would have granted permission anyway. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Andre. Very, very good points. Okay, anybody else want to speak on this one at all? Right, Councillor Andre, you're proposing that we write a letter?
I think we can leave it to the councillors on the Development Control Committee to raise on our behalf.
Okay.
If that's all right with them, of course.
But a letter won't hurt, though, from us, to be honest. How do you feel? How do you feel?
We've written and nothing's happening. Enforcement have basically said, yeah, we know, we're not doing anything about it. Yeah, I don't think a letter's even worth the trouble, quite frankly. But the points you raised about the what is it? The building control, yeah. Building control, that's it. I don't think that's been raised. I don't know, Colin, has it been raised before?
Councillor Andre is right to say that's a different matter entirely. And whilst it's possibly unlikely, of course, lots of companies and institutions choose a private building control company, so we simply wouldn't know whether or not they have got a private building control consultant who has checked over their plans, and the building would be fully compliant by the time it's finished. I don't really understand why building control can be privatised, but even the NHS uses a private building control company. So it's you'd have thought it would be something that would be a kind of a municipal function that we say this building is okay, but that's privatised. So you wouldn't know if they've got building consent, if you like, because they'll do it all at the end.
Right. I'm learning something every day here. Dear. Councillor Smith.
I think whether or not it'll have any material effect, I think it's always a good idea to do an official letter from the council, just to sort of put on record our objection to what is happening. So for that reason, I would propose that we do write that letter.
Okay. Right. Okay then. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Smith's proposal. Right, Councillor Andre. All those in favour, please show. Okay, thank you for that. And next thing on the agenda, I think, is closure. Yep, date of next meeting. No, it's not closure, it's date of next meeting, which is item 9. and that is the 19th of September 2023. Thank you very much. And item 10 was disclosure.